Hi everyone, it's Bert from Season Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a fun little video for the Christmas season. PlayStation VR has gotten really popular doing the Black Friday sales and also for the winter sales that are currently going on. With all that happening, we wanted to put together a video to kind of give you the overview of the PlayStation VR, our thoughts on it, what you can play on it, what you can't play on it, how does it even connect to the PlayStation 4. I'm joined as usual by Dan and Ains, and we're going to be going through this together and hopefully answering the most common questions with the PlayStation VR. So let's get started on when it came out, how much did it cost, all the good stuff as far as software when that first happened. So the PlayStation VR initially launched back in October of 2016, and it wasn't cheap. It was for $399.99, and the options weren't exactly the best when it came to software. Now the reception was kind of up and down. It didn't exactly sell out all over the place because there really wasn't much to play for it when it first came out. But now that the software's been out for a couple of years, stuff is changing, and I wanted to get your basic thoughts on what you think so far on the console. So, Ains, what do you think so far about the PlayStation VR? I know you just picked one up.
Yeah, I only picked one up a few weeks ago. One of the Black Friday sales, the real popular one with the Astrobot and Moss bundle. It, when it came out a couple years ago, I thought it was cool technology. It was nice to see Sony kind of pushing forward with the technology in a more affordable kind of entry-level way versus like the Vive and the Oculus at the time, which were a little more expensive and more exclusive. And then of course, because you're supporting it from Sony's perspective with the PlayStation 4, that's really good too. But it didn't really interest me at launch because of the price and because of the software, like you just mentioned. It just wasn't enough, must-buy software. So as Black Friday hit this year, 2 years after release, and the software's gotten a lot better. Particularly, the two games I wanted most on PSVR were Moss and Astrobot. A big platformer fan, as we know. So, since I've picked it up, I've put several hours into it. I've played Tetris Effect and Moss, Astrobot, and I think I told you guys the other day, Astrobot is really the one that jumped out to me. Moss is gorgeous, and we'll maybe touch on that. But Astrobot, just from a design perspective, is really like playing an old school platformer, Mario style type game, but in full immersion, where you're jumping around all over the world around you, and it's kind of mind blowing. If it's your first foray into VR, it's really, really interesting to just look all around you and be able to go to that location. It's even really hard to explain. Dan, maybe you'll do a better job at explaining it than me, but it is really neat so far. I've enjoyed my time with it since I bought it.
Yeah, so Dan, let's talk about you over here. So you've bought the PSVR a bit earlier than we did, and you've had the VR console a lot longer. What are your thoughts on the basic console itself?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to preface all this saying I've been diagnosed with like a mild vertigo. It kind of comes and goes. So I was very, very hesitant. I actually had it last year. I had bought it, and I couldn't bring myself to open up the box because I was worried I would fall over and smash my head against something. So so I ended up returning it, and I've been on some medication and stuff like that. It's kind of gotten better, but I do have to play it in spurts. I didn't get it too much earlier than you guys, but I played it quite a bit. It's pretty awesome. I mean, I hear a lot of people, oh, it's niche, it's a a fad and stuff like that, but once you really get into it and kind of see what it's all about, it's pretty impressive. I've played Astrobot and Moss, Tetris Effect a little bit, several other smaller games, but like Ains said, Astrobot is kind of a different level as far as the integration and stuff, and I think that's just with more time to develop these games, and learning that technology and getting a little bit better. My initial impressions was, I was kind of blown away. I was like, wow, this is something else. And Astrobot was, I think, the first one I played. I love the platformer. My kids play it all the time. In fact, they're getting one for Christmas. It's crazy that I bought two PSVRs. I bought another PlayStation. Just because of how just cool it is. I mean, it's really, really cool. It's a lot of fun. You do have to kind of watch for some, little things here and there, especially if you get motion sickness or vertigo or something like that. It's not something I really kind of thought kind of the same way where, maybe this is a little bit niche, it's not going to really take off. But I think it may not be the future of gaming, but there's definitely a place for it, going forward in this in the gaming sphere. So I really like it.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about cost and what's happened to it and where we currently are today with the sales that are currently going on. So I briefly touched at the beginning of the video that the console, when it came out, the headset and everything, was $399, and that's pretty steep when you consider the cost of a PlayStation Pro, a Slim, and even the original. It's a pretty expensive console when it was. Ains did mention that the Oculus Rift and the Vive were out during that time, and they were even more expensive than that, but it's a less, I guess, it's less of a headset than the other ones were because they could do a lot more when they first came out. However, things have changed. So now the console, the base price for the console currently today is $349. So that was with a $50 drop from the $399. What comes in that little bundle is the headset, you get the PS camera, and you get the 2 Move controllers, and it usually at least includes 1 to 2 games with that. The base console, the absolute base, which is the bare minimum you can get for it, is the headset, the Move, without the Move controllers. I'm sorry, the PlayStation camera and the Move controllers are not included in there, and it also includes a game there. That is for $299. So you're dealing with the $50 difference between the, I guess, advanced bundle and the base bundle. On Black Friday, a new sale came out which literally took $100 off whatever bundle you wanted. So you could get the base bundle for $199 and the advanced bundle for $249. With all that being said, they both came with great games in there. The base console was bundled with Moss and Astrobot, which is the one that Ains was mentioning he liked a lot. The other console that was available was, I believe it came with Beat Saber, and is it Borderlands 2 that just came out as a new bundle? But what was the one that was going on through the holidays, guys? Was it also Borderlands 2?
It was Creed, I believe.
Creed and Beat
yeah.
Saber, that's right. Right, so for Black Friday you had the Creed, and that has now been replaced with Borderlands 2 for the winter holiday. So depending on which bundle you're getting, I believe those bundles are still out in the wild now. You should be able to pick them up. They're not selling out as much as they were during Black Friday, but right now is the time to pick them up. So that's where we are on pricing. It's been a pretty considerable price drop, which was the original $50 price drop on both bundles. With the current sales, it's an additional $100 off. So altogether, you're looking at either a $100 drop or the $150 drop as to what you may want to get. So is this the right time to buy? And that's what we're going to be talking about. So let's talk about the technical aspect and how it actually plugs in. So how does this work on a PlayStation console? Ains, we'll kick it off with you. How do you connect this? Is it tons of wires? Is it wireless? What are we working with here?
Oh God, I wish it was wireless. It's certainly not wireless. It's wire full. It comes with a separate little box. It's probably like a 5x5 square box that you can put somewhere near your PlayStation. And basically there's connections between your PlayStation 4 and that box, and then there's connections between the headset and that box. So you've got another, it's either 4 or 5 total wires that need to be plugged in and connected. The headset itself has a single wire, but it breaks into 2 plugs that go into this box, and then you have to put in the earbuds that actually plug into the headset as well to use while playing, because I run my PlayStation 4 through a audio receiver through surround sound, and it doesn't really support that. It changes it to stereo sound, and then you use the earbuds that are actually in the headset. So that's one little technical negative in my regard, because I'm really big on sound and it doesn't support that full breadth of sound. But it's not difficult to set up, but there's definitely opportunity in the future as they modify the thing to simplify it a bit. There really are just too many wires and connections right now, and I think that's simply due to keeping costs down. And when it was designed back in probably 2015, 2016, that was really being wireless was too cost prohibitive.
Okay, and to make sure I understood everything you just said, Ain, just to sum it up, you got one single box. You said it's a 5x5. Wires go from the PlayStation into that box on one side, and then on the other side you have the PlayStation headset, which is one main cable that goes into that. So what you have coming from the main box is the headset. You plug the headphones into the headset, and that's all you're really dealing with. The controller itself is still going to remain DualShock 4, which is going to be Bluetooth wireless in there. Is that correct?
All correct, yes. And one interesting thing is to be aware of is the DualShock 4 has that light bar on the back of it, and the PlayStation camera, another thing you have to set up, by the way, so you have to set up the PlayStation camera as well. But the PlayStation camera picks up the DualShock 4, it turns the light red, and that's how it recognizes it for PSVR. I've noticed that for some aftermarket controllers like the Nacon, like the Scuff that I use and have done reviews on, it will not recognize those controllers because they don't adjust the light bar the same way. So I've actually had to go back to using a standard DualShock 4 when playing with my PSVR.
That's a great point. So if you're listening, guys, those aftermarket controllers, take a look at the lighting that's on the edge of the controller, not the top, but at the back of it, what is facing the TV when you're playing with that. Great. So that's set up, guys. Let's switch over to Dan really quick. What kind of resolution and sound are we working with our headsets? I know there's 2 versions. Do we get the same resolution on both versions?
No. So the first version, I think they released it did not have like HDR pass through. I believe they're 1080p. As far as the video goes, audio, the PlayStation will automatically switch. I believe Ain said that to your headset audio.
Yep.
It comes with a couple of little earbuds that pop in there. If you don't like that, they do have other options. Any kind of headset will work. It should anyway. They do sell some specific ones. These right here are the Rig 400 VRs, specifically made for the PlayStation, but you can use them, or for the PlayStation VR, you can use them with any other console too. They're pretty reasonable as far as price goes. I prefer those. They're a lot more comfortable. I'm not a huge fan of earbuds in general, but those are where you can basically use any kind that you want. The video looks good. There is some adjusting to get used to as far as getting a nice clear picture. You really have to make sure it's on there fairly tight. There are adjustments for that too. It's pretty comfortable. I mean, I can't see myself using it for like extended periods, but as far as the visual quality, I think it's fantastic. For now it's not the Vive or the Oculus or whatever. Those are running off of CPUs, so they're going to obviously have a lot more power, probably better graphics, and this is you're running it off the base your PlayStation, so you're kind of limited as far as hardware goes as to what kind of video that you're actually going to get through the set. But it does the job, that's for sure. Does a great job with it.
Yeah, so can I add 2 comments real quick, Bert? So
sure.
On the sound, the standard earbuds that come with the PSVR aren't great, and Dan just touched on it. Not only do they not stay in your ear well, but the sound really isn't that great. So I'm definitely interested in checking out those the rigs you have, Dan. I may have to have you bring those over, actually.
Sure.
But on the video part that he touched on, it really is finicky with adjustment. Like when you put it on your headset, you have to tighten it up. There's a couple adjustments you make. There's a button here. I'll show you on the video. There's a button here on the top that slides this front back and forth, and then there's this button on the back here that slides the back and forth, and you get it really tight on your eyes. But unless you have it just right, it gets kind of blurry. Like, you have to have it adjusted very well. And the only comment I'll make is that if you're used to playing on an X1X or PS4 Pro, especially with the sharpness of HDR and 4K, on a high-end TV, something like an OLED or something of that nature, you will notice a difference. It simply does not support the same vibrancy and the same sharpness that those kind of TVs provide. So you should go in kind of knowing that.
Great. And just to touch on Dan's point, there is 2 different versions of the console. There was a headset that came out in 2016. The update happened in late 2016, early 2017, so those new headsets are out. If you see a really good price on them and it's maybe too good to be true, you're more than likely looking at the old headset. You want to look at the newer one. They're usually bundled. You can kind of tell by looking at it, but overall they're very, very similar in how they look, so just be careful on what you're picking up. It's the same with the Move controller, so there has been a few questions that we've seen online and Reddit and everything. The PlayStation 3 did have Move controllers that did also take advantage of the PlayStation camera on the PlayStation 3. Dan, I know I asked you earlier offline, can you use those old PlayStation 3 Move controllers on the PlayStation 4 and PSVR?
Yeah, I bought some used. The biggest difference right now I'm going to show it to you right here. That's a mini, I think, USB. So those are a little bit harder to find anymore. I don't know if this one was for PlayStation 3. I'm like 99% sure that they're interchangeable. So the newer ones come with a micro USB for charging and for syncing on these Move controllers. These things, they're not cheap. They're $100 for a brand new set. You can find them used for about $30 a piece at GameStop. Is where I found mine. They work perfectly fine. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you can use them both ways. And if you've got those for the PS3, you should be ready to go for that PSVR for the ones that use the actual controllers.
Yeah, the basic stuff that I've read with the Move controllers is that the new ones are a bit more efficient, so they take care of battery a little bit better than the old ones do, but overall they're the same thing. They serve the same purpose when it comes to the hardware end of things, so you should be doing the same thing. If you have a previous set from the PlayStation 3, you're already good to go. As Dan said, from a retailer, MSRP for them is $99.99. I've seen them on sale on eBay a couple times for $80, and you can find them used, as Dan said, from $30 to $40 at GameStop, or even someone else maybe selling him on a Craigslist ad or something like that. So kind of good to use there. And if you are looking at using the Move controllers, potentially that bigger bundle is only 50 extra bucks for them, so you could get a brand new set for half off. I guess you could kind of look at it that way as well. So let's switch over to software and what is out now versus what used to be out. Ains, I know you mentioned when you were talking that the original software kind of offering from the PlayStation VR wasn't the best, and now things are out there. So what are some must-buys in your opinion that have been designed for VR? So not with the VR option, that have been designed for VR. What do you suggest?
Yeah, well, I mean, we touched on two already. With Moss was really celebrated when it came out, and it's really, really neat. It's almost like you're playing through a storybook. It was the first game I actually played with my PSVR, and it really kind of amazed me. In fact, I think I told you guys, funny enough, and this is going to sound stupid, I realize, but I actually, at one point, actually reached out to grab something with my hand while I was playing. It just, I don't know if it was like a, subliminal thought in my head that happened there, subconscious. But Astrobot is, I would say, far and away my highest recommendation. It's the game that has really made me go, wow, there's something unique and special here about VR that is only going to be expanded upon further, as we get into next generation and more companies get more experience. Tetris Effect is really cool. It's one you saw a lot that, people were blowing up saying you got to play it on PSVR. And I got to be honest with you, it's definitely neat in VR and the colors and stuff and that go on behind the scenes. But to be honest with you, I'm just as comfortable playing it regular. So I don't know if that's really a must-buy. I've heard, I have not played it, but I've heard that Resident Evil 7, if you like survival horror and you can stomach playing it in VR, I've heard it's incredible because it's the entire full game in VR versus a lot of these other games that you see for PSVR are short experiences. They're like 3, 4, 5 hour games that don't have a lot of development time into them, and they're really kind of just trying to capitalize on the VR aspect rather than full-fledged games. And I think that's where games like Astrobot really stand out, is that they're full 10, 12, 15 hour games fully built for VR. So I don't have a lot of recommendations other than that. I wish I have played more. I know Dan's played more than I have, and I think Beat Saber is one that has gotten really, really high praise as well.
Yeah, so Dan, before I jump over to you, I do want to mention the difference. So I initially touched on there's some games that are designed solely for VR. You can still play them on the PlayStation 4 Pro or Slim or the original, but they're designed more for VR. The way to kind of tell the difference is here I'm holding up Gran Turismo Sport, and you can see here PlayStation VR mode included. So the standalone game is the main portion of the game. They have added a feature or the ability to play in VR. Dan, switching back to you, I know you reviewed Beat Saber for us, and that was one of your favorite games you've played. What are some other games you suggest from not only a VR design perspective, but also one that includes the mode in it?
Okay, so yeah, Beat Saber was, I kind of liken it to like Guitar Hero or something like that. It's basically where you use the move controllers, blocks come at you, you've got to slice them in a certain way. You use these awesome move controllers. It's a workout for sure. A lot of these are actually. I played Creed as well. It's pretty amazing. Those two games are kind of must-buys for me because I need to get in shape because I'm fat. So those will get you moving anyway. It's kind of nice, because a lot of people think of gamers kind of just sitting there and very, very stationary, very, this will get you up off your feet or onto your feet and get you moving around a little bit. I agree with Ains. Astrobot is a must-buy for sure. Tetris Effect, like he said, I'm not a huge Tetris guy, to be honest with you, so there really isn't too much of a difference between that and, playing in a regular flat screen. I played a couple other games, one called Archangel VR. That's pretty cool. Borderlands, I just started trying that out yesterday. It's basically the same Borderlands 2 game, but with just a couple different little additions and hiccups. It made me sick, to be honest with you, but it was cool because I loved Borderlands 2. I mean, Borderlands franchise was awesome. When I saw it come out, I was like, I'm gonna have to buy this, and I partially regret that, but at the same time, it's really well implemented. They did a really good job implementing that stuff. As far as other ones, like Wipeout, if you're looking for kind of a racing game, I haven't played the GT Sport stuff yet. I'd like to try that stuff out, but I played some of the Wipeout, and it is crazy. I mean, that's one of those things. You're in the cockpit instead of having you can see your hands now. They don't move; they're stationary the whole time, but you can see all the little buttons and stuff inside the cockpit, and it's kind of distracting actually. You're trying to race, and I'm just like, ooh, that looks cool. What can I do? But that's just my short attention span. There's a couple other ones I'd like to try out. I did try out Doom VR, but it's more, there's a lot of the movement in these games. You can use a standard controller and you can move around in a lot of them, but a lot of them rely on teleporting, which is basically a trigger on the back of your move controller right here, and you'll basically point and click and it'll move you to that point. And it's really kind of a weird system if you're not used to it, and I didn't really care for it. But there's so many out there. I found one that's called Cat Lateral Damage, and it might be the dumbest VR game I've ever seen, but it was like $2. So I said, oh, I'll get it. My kids couldn't put that thing down because you get the move controllers. It's got a VR mode, so you can switch over. And you use the move controllers, and they're your paws, and your whole goal is to just go knock stuff off of shelves while your owners are away. Super simple, but super fun. So it doesn't need to be like some kind of crazy good experience, graphically, and as long as the game is fun and you can, get into it a little bit and have a little bit different experience, I think it's any of those games are worth it.
Okay, great. Appreciate that, Dan and Ain. So we did want to kind of sum it up, and if you're interested in the PlayStation VR, definitely take a look at the games that are available. Do some research on them. There's a lot of stuff that we haven't even mentioned that may interest you, depending on your age level. If you have kids that maybe be interested in it, there is some games that are designed for kids. There's some really short games as well. The PlayStation VR in general is not designed to be played for hours upon hours upon hours. You got to play for a little bit, take a break, come back. So some of those short games might be something that you're interested in that maybe doesn't interest us as much. So let's talk about the cost. Let's talk about the games. Let's put it all together. As we did mention, it is $100 off right now on what the new price is. And remember, there was a $50 price drop. So if you're looking for the base console, it is $199. If you want the extra bundle, it's $250. So what do you guys think? Is it a buy now? Is it still wait for a bigger sale? I mean, $200 is the price of sometimes a base PlayStation 4. What do you guys think? Let's start with you, Ains. Is it a buy now or wait for a bigger sale later on down the road?
Yeah, I mean, it's always subjective, but in my opinion, I think it's a buy now. I think, we're getting an early look in your house at a really inexpensive entry-level cost of what is going to be another area of gaming in the future. And I think, I bought it for $199 in that bundle. I would say it's definitely worth it. I haven't played it, an extremely large amount, but I think just for the experience and getting to see something different, games like Astrobot and Moss, excellent games. I think it's worth it. I don't see how you get a whole lot lower than that, given the specs of it. It may eventually go to $150 or something of that nature, but I mean, at $199, I think is a really reasonable entry-level price to get in on it.
Okay, how about you, Dan? Is it a must-buy? Do you have to go buy this for the holidays? What do you think?
Yeah, at this price, it's kind of a no-brainer, actually. If you were able to afford it for $200 with a couple games, even the $250, which might actually be the better deal, it kind of comes down to what kind of games you want. I would, if I were going out and buying now, I would probably buy the Moss Astrobot bundle and then just go and get those controllers, those Move controllers, used somewhere else. I'm glad I did. I was very hesitant. You guys know I was kind of worried about the whole vertigo thing, about getting motion sickness. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I definitely have to watch it, but you really can't. I don't see it dropping much lower, than $200. So if it's still out there and you can get it, especially when you see like the Oculus Rift and the Vive, and they're $400 to $500, sometimes more, depending on which one you get. This is the perfect entry-level VR experience. If you own a PlayStation already, I would just jump on it immediately.
Okay, great. Okay, everyone, if you've watched this, if you had any questions that maybe we didn't cover, if there was some software that maybe you have played that you enjoy more, or maybe there's some software that you have questions for us about and it might be good for you or someone else, let us know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed on what we showed you about the PlayStation VR's overview. Let us know if you have anything else in general about the PlayStation that you have questions on. Make sure to like and subscribe and catch us on our next video. Thanks, everyone.